Welcome to our channel. Today we will explore the shocking mystery of Michael Jackson. I faked everything, and now I'm going to reveal why. What was behind the moonwalk music and mysterious life of the King of Pop? Get ready. The legendary Michael Jackson, the King of Pop, seems to be back with a shocking revelation. I faked everything. And now I'm going to tell the world why were his iconic dance moves, his timeless songs, or his entire life just an elaborate drama. Join us as we uncover the untold secrets and discover the truth behind this shocking story. Do you think that Michael Jackson could have really hidden a big secret like faking everything during his career? If you believe this is possible, leave the number 1 in the comment section. If you think this is just a fictional story, comment the number 0. Please support us by clicking like and subscribing to the channel so you don't miss the next interesting content. Thank you. He came from a small house on Jackson Street in Gary, Indiana. It was a cramped life with 10 children, a steelworker father who didn't know how to be gentle, and a mother who tried her best to keep the family together. Of all the children, the young artist stood out. Off stage, he was shy, almost wanting to disappear. But once he was in the spotlight, he transformed into a completely different person. It was magical. Everyone knew they were witnessing something rare, even at the age of 6. The home was not a place for fun or entertainment. It was a place for survival through music. Joseph's father cared only about results. Practice was not optional, nor was it fun. It was brutal sometimes, long until their legs ached and their voices died. For the youngest of kids, mistakes were unacceptable. Joseph's relentless approach ensured that. But even with all the pressure, the youngster's talent shone through, and before long, the Jackson 5 had moved from local talent shows to signing with Motown Records. That was the beginning of it all. In 1969, the Jackson 5 exploded onto the music scene. Their first single, I Want You Back, was an instant hit. His voice had a depth and vulnerability that belied his 11 years. And on stage, he didn't just sing. He had a presence that couldn't be ignored. It was all instinct, not just practiced moves. Songs like ABC and I'll Be There made the Jackson 5 a household name. But even then, it was clear that the youngest member was something special. The spotlight was slowly shifting from the group to him. His brother seemed pleased with the group's success, but not the performer. Fame wasn't enough. He wanted more. By 1971, he was releasing solo material, and by 1979, he released Off the Wall. That album was a game changer. Songs like Don't Stop Till You Get Enough and Rock With You were fresh, energetic, and completely his own. It was the first time he stepped out of his brother's shadow, showing the world that he wasn't just another pop star. He was something else entirely. Then came Thriller. If Off the Wall was a spark, then Thriller was an unstoppable fire. Released in 1982, it was not only a hit, it broke records. Songs like Billie Jean and Beat It became cultural milestones. And the thrilling music video was something the world had never seen before. It was 13 minutes of zombies, horror, and iconic dance moves. MTV played it constantly, and everyone was hooked. In 1983, the entertainer introduced the world to the moonwalk when he performed Billie Jean at the Motown 25th anniversary show. It was one of those jaw-dropping moments. He glided across the stage upside down, seemingly defying gravity. That performance sealed his fate as a global icon. By the mid-'80s, he was on top of the world, selling out stadiums, dominating the charts, and turning every music video into a major event. But behind the glitz and the cheers of the fans, things began to fall apart. The fame he had earned came at a cost, and the cracks were showing. By the mid-'80s, the artist seemed to have it all. He was the most recognizable face in the world, with millions of albums sold and fans who worshipped him. But who was he really? Fame made him larger than life, but it also trapped him. Behind the strict Jackson family upbringing, he was never allowed to be anything more than a child. His father, Joseph, didn't want children. He wanted performers, and he was shaped to fit that role perfectly. As his solo career took off, the pressure only increased. His every move was scrutinized. His relationships, his gestures, even his appearance were debated by the public. By the late 1970s, people were noticing changes in his appearance. His skin was lighter, his nose was slimmer, his jawline was sharper. Rumors began to circulate. It could be just a few surgeries, or it could be something more. By the mid-1980s, those whispers had turned into a roar. He claimed to have vitiligo, a condition that causes patches of skin to lose their color. Medical reports later confirmed this, but the media didn't care. They reported on his skin bleaching, on his desire to change who he was. The entertainer remained private, rarely speaking out, and the silence only fueled the rumors. Some see him as a man struggling with his identity, while others defend him fiercely. It's not just his skin. Over the years, his face seems to have changed completely. It's not just plastic surgery. It's like he's trying to become someone else. Each change makes him more mysterious, and the world can't stop trying to figure out who he really is. Do you think Michael Jackson might have intentionally created rumors and mysteries around his life to protect a larger truth? If you believe the King of Pop was cleverly hiding something, leave a 2 in the comments. If you think it's all just coincidence or artistic creation, leave a 5. Watch the video to find out more, hit like, and subscribe to the channel to support us. For him, the scrutiny was stifling. He once spoke of looking in the mirror and not recognizing himself. He donned gloves, fedoras, and sequined jackets like armor, trying to shield himself from a harsh world that demanded perfection. As Michael's fame grew, the pressure and loneliness only deepened. Neverland, a dream turned nightmare. Fame and scrutiny isolated Michael Jackson even more. Even those closest to him seemed to have their own agendas. Friends became opportunists, and the pop icon retreated into his own world. He built Neverland Ranch, a sprawling estate that was supposed to be his hideout. There were amusement rides, zoo animals, and everything he thought might bring back the joy of childhood. But even there, the world wouldn't leave him alone. The media labeled him crazy, and rightly so. They ridiculed everything he did, from his pet chimpanzee balloons to his love of amusement parks. It didn't matter if these things brought him happiness. To the rest of the world, they were just evidence that he was losing touch with reality, and the entertainer, consciously or not, played on that narrative, blurring the line between his true self and the persona the media portrayed him as. Neverland Ranch was both a dream and a nightmare for the performer. Built in the late 1980s, it was supposed to be a haven where he could relive his lost childhood. Inspired by Peter Pan, it represented everything the star felt he had missed out on: freedom, innocence, and fun. He invited children, families, and poor children to enjoy the rides and zoo. It was his way of giving back, of making others happy. But as the 1990s wore on, word of Neverland began to spread. In 1993, the first child abuse allegations surfaced, and Neverland became the center of controversy. What had once seemed like a miraculous escape now looked suspect. The media had a field day. His relationships with the boys became the focus, and his sleepovers at Neverland were painted in the worst possible light. He defended himself, claiming he was innocent, that he just wanted to give children a place to feel loved and safe. But the damage was done. He settled the case out of court in 1993, but the world never looked at him the same way again. In 2005, the allegations returned, and this time the musician had to go to trial. It was a spectacle. Former employees spoke out against him, others defended him, and the world watched his life unfold. He was acquitted, but his image was shattered. Neverland, once filled with joy, was empty. The rides were dismantled. The animals were gone. And by the time of his death in 2009, Neverland was a shell of its former self. To some, Neverland was a testament to his innocence, a symbol of the childlike joy he had always wanted to experience. For others, it was a place filled with dark secrets. The artist's complex, conflicted nature was reflected in Neverland, and it became a part of his story that people still debate to this day. His relationship with the media was a constant source of pain. They called him Wacko Jacko in the 1980s, and that label followed him for years. The media portrayed him as strange, turning every eccentricity into something sinister. They wrote stories based on rumors like the one about him sleeping in an oxygen chamber to stay young. He later said many of these stories were exaggerated or completely fabricated. But by then it didn't matter. The press knew that strange stories about the pop star sold newspapers, and they pushed that image as far as they could. This treatment took its toll on him. The media reduced him to a caricature, stripped him of his humanity. They ignored his talents and accomplishments in favor of sensationalist headlines. He was a brilliant performer, but to many he was just a spectacle. And for years, icons seemed to accept that bad press was still press, and perhaps it was better to be left alone. But by the early 2000s, the weight of it all had become overwhelming. The tabloids had created a version of him that many could not separate from reality. To some, he was a misunderstood and unfairly targeted artist. To others, he was a joke. Even those close to him did not always know what was fact and what was tabloid fiction. The constant scrutiny made him wary and paranoid. He often said the press was out to destroy him, and interviews revealed a man who was careful with his words, always afraid of giving them more ammunition. His relationships were another part of his life that everyone wanted to know about. His first marriage to Lisa Marie Presley in 1994 was a shock. Here was the king of pop marrying the daughter of the king of rock and roll. The marriage was almost too perfect, but the media questioned the authenticity of the marriage, calling it a publicity stunt to improve his image. After the 1993 allegations, Lisa Marie defended their relationship, saying it was based on love. But the constant public attention took its toll, and they divorced in 1996. Michael's search for love and family added new challenges to his life: fatherhood, finances, and an eventual comeback. That same year, Michael Jackson married Debbie Rowe, a nurse who had worked for his dermatologist. Their relationship seemed more practical than romantic. Debbie bore the artist's two children, Prince and Paris. Critics have suggested the marriage was purely for the sake of children, but those who knew the pop star said he was a devoted father despite the unconventional relationship. His third child, Blanket, was born in 2002, and the identity of his mother has never been revealed, adding to the artist's already complicated personal life. Many people find the artist's parenting style strange. He often covers his children's faces when he goes out to protect them from paparazzi. To the world, it's just another example of his eccentricity. But to the musician, it's a way to keep his children safe from the scrutiny that has followed him throughout his life. Despite his efforts, his children grew up in the shadow of his fame. After his death, Paris became more open about her father and the struggles they faced as a family. The icon's relationships extended to his family, especially his siblings. The Jackson family had a complex relationship, both loving and strained. He often spoke well of his sister Janet, but there were rumors of discord and conflict. Being the most famous member of an already famous family came with its own challenges, and the superstar's need for independence clashed with his family's expectations. While the legendary entertainer tried to maintain a normal personal life, his financial troubles became increasingly unbearable. He made hundreds of millions of dollars from his music tours and merchandise, but by the early 2000s he was deep in debt. Neverland Ranch, the crown jewel of his spending, cost him millions to maintain. It wasn't just a house. It was a full-blown amusement park, complete with rides, animals, and staff. Keeping all the parks running was draining his finances. The entertainer's spending habits were notorious. He didn't just buy the necessities, he bought whatever he wanted, and he wanted a lot. His shopping sprees became famous, and he spent lavishly on art furniture and collectibles. His purchase of the famous ATV music catalog, including the rights to Beatles songs, was a smart business move, but it wasn't enough to save him from bankruptcy. He used his music catalog as collateral for loans, and by the time of his death, he owed nearly $500 million. The artist's financial troubles came to a head in 2008 when his Neverland home was foreclosed on. He managed to transfer ownership to a holding company to avoid losing everything, but the future was near. He needed a comeback, and the This Is It tour was supposed to be it. 50 shows in London were planned, and it was supposed to be his return to the spotlight, a chance to clear his debts and remind everyone of his talent. But his health was failing, and the pressure was on. He wanted to prove himself, but the demands were too great, and in the end, he never got the chance. The pop legend died in June 2009, and the world mourned. His sudden death exposed his financial struggles, but it also sparked renewed interest in his music. The same world that had once crushed him now celebrated him. His estate, once in shambles, began to recover as his music memorabilia and brand brought in millions of dollars. In his later years, the star was a man struggling to keep it all together. He was isolated, lost in his faith, and battling health issues that left him frail. He became increasingly dependent on prescription drugs, and those close to him knew he was in a fragile state. Despite his best efforts to continue creating and planning for his comeback, the burdens of his life were too great. The king of pop's money is still a big deal in 2025. But let's be real, it's a combination of genius and people trying to squeeze every dollar they can out of his name. The music icon is still making millions of dollars years after his death, and it's not just because his music is still cool. His legacy has turned his fame into a full-blown business, and there's a lot going on behind the scenes to keep those dollars rolling in. First of all, his old songs are like moneymakers. They're classics, and they're still played, streamed, and bought. Legacy continues to release special editions of his albums, making them deluxe or adding some unreleased tracks to get fans excited again. People love anything new from an artist, and that means more money from sales and streaming. Basically, every time you listen to Thriller or Billie Jean, someone is making money off of it, but they're not just relying on the old stuff. By 2025, the Legacy will likely be making money from all sorts of collaborations. You know how brands love a famous face? Well, their image is still iconic, so it's plastered on merchandise, maybe even in ads or shows. There are always some big brands that want to cash in on his cool factor, and people still buy anything with his name on it. Plus, they could be jumping on the whole NFT thing. People really like these digital collectibles, and the estate could definitely get in on that game selling unique digital moments like iconic dance moves or concert clips. It's all about keeping up with trends, and digital content is where the money is these days. Imagine buying your own digital moonwalk. That's probably what they're betting on. The family also likes to play up his philanthropic side, which isn't just about being nice. It's a way to keep his image bright and positive. Sure, he did a lot of charity work while he was alive, but continuing those efforts also helped people relate to him, which meant more people buying his stuff. The life of this performer was complicated. He was a musical genius, an artist who changed the face of pop music forever. His influence is undeniable. Artists of all genres have cited him as an inspiration, and his impact is still felt in music, dance, and culture today. But his life was also marked by scandal, legal battles, and questions that may never have clear answers. The entertainer was a man who wanted to spread joy, but often couldn't find joy himself. He was a legend who became a prisoner of his own fame. In the end, perhaps his greatest gift wasn't just his music or his incredible performances. Perhaps it is a reminder that even the biggest stars are flawed, complex human beings capable of both greatness and mistakes. The king of pop is finally back. Michael's life was never normal. He grew up under the tight grip of his father, Joe Jackson. Joe was no joke. He used a belt to keep things in order, which meant that Michael's childhood was a mix of strict discipline and the warmth of his mother, Catherine. Not exactly the classic happy family story. And now, years later, after all the fame, the scandals, the supposed sightings, here we are again trying to piece together whether this strange encounter was a hoax or something more. Michael's beginnings were not easy. His father, a strict man who believed in discipline above all else, was at odds with his mother's kindness. Catherine wanted to be a country singer, but ended up working at Sears, doing everything she could to make her children's dreams come true. One day, Michael even received a mysterious letter. There was something about the secrets in his past. It was like a movie plot, but real life. Could all those years of following strict rules, a famous childhood, and hidden secrets somehow bring us here today to see him again? Michael wasn't born famous. He worked hard starting in the mid-60s when he joined his brothers in a group that would become the Jackson 5. Imagine little Michael as a kid singing My Girl and dancing his heart out at local talent shows. This was the start of something big. Music was more than a hobby. It became his escape, his serious career. But fame came with sacrifice. From 1966 to 1968, the Jackson 5 toured what people called the Chitlin Circuit. It wasn't flashy, it was rough, long hours, but it honed them. In 1967, they had their big moment at the Apollo Theater in Harlem, winning an amateur competition. The win put them on a path straight to the top, and by 1970, they were releasing hit after hit with Motown Records. The hits kept coming, and Michael's star kept rising. By the early 70s, he had become more than just a member of the Jackson 5. He was the star. His solo career took off with hits like Ben. Yes, the one about the mouse, making it clear that he was more than just a pop star. He was different. He kept pushing, kept experimenting. Who can forget the robot dance he did in Soul Train and Dancing Machine? It wasn't just a dance. It was a generation-defining moment, but fame had its downsides. Motown's tight control began to feel like a trap, and in 1975, the group left Motown and joined Epic Records, renaming themselves the Jacksons. Michael began to come into his own writing songs like Shake Your Body Down to the Ground. His move to New York City in 1977 to work for The Wiz was another pivotal moment. Meeting Quincy Jones on that project changed everything for him musically. By the late 70s, Michael had changed direction. His 1979 album Off the Wall was a gamer. It was more than just music. It was a statement. He had broken free from his teen idol image and become a global phenomenon. The album sold over 20 million copies worldwide. And Michael wasn't satisfied. He wanted more, and he knew he could get it. He secured the highest royalty rates in the industry, a move that spoke volumes about his ambition. Then there's Thriller. It's almost impossible to talk about pop culture without mentioning Thriller. The iconic music, the red jacket, the single white glove, it all became larger than life. The album has sold around 70 million copies, making it the best-selling album of all time. Michael was a perfectionist and worked tirelessly to create something that was not only good, but legendary. He knew how to command attention, how to make people watch and listen. And with his moonwalk at the Motown 25th anniversary celebration in 1983, he didn't just perform, he made a cultural mark. Even with all his success, Michael was always surrounded by rumors. Rumors about his personal life, his changing appearance, his relationships. People talked about his skin lightening, speculating whether it was a choice. In 1983, his dermatologist confirmed it was vitiligo, but by then the media had spun the story. Michael insisted he wasn't trying to change who he was, just dealing with a medical condition. But the whispers persisted. His creative genius, however, never stopped. The 1980s were filled with success, controversy, and change. He collaborated with big names like Freddie Mercury, worked on iconic tracks like We Are the World, and continued to make seemingly untouchable records. He bought the ATV Music publishing catalog in 1985, which included Beatles songs, cementing his influence in the music industry, not just as an artist but as a powerful business figure. And then there was Neverland, the 2,700-acre estate he turned into his own private wonderland. It was both a symbol of his success and a reflection of his need to escape the harsh realities of fame. The king of pop lived in a fairy tale of his own making, but the real world kept knocking on his door with accusations and scandals lurking in the background. Michael was a cultural icon. His nose appeared smaller, his skin lighter, and his overall appearance more refined. In his 1988 autobiography, Moonwalk, he admitted to having 2 nose jobs, but rumors suggested there was more to it than that. His skin condition, albinism, was widely misunderstood and became the subject of endless speculation. People questioned whether he was trying to change his identity, but Michael always maintained that he was simply dealing with a medical condition. The pressures of fame took their toll. Michael was constantly in the spotlight, and it seemed every aspect of his life was open to public debate. He found solace in his work, pouring all his energy into creating and performing. In 1988, he released his autobiography Moonwalk, giving fans a glimpse into his world. He talked about his childhood, his struggles, and his passion for music. The book became a bestseller, but it also highlighted the loneliness that came with his fame. Michael's desire to create a place where he could escape led to the creation of Neverland Ranch. It was a sprawling estate with amusement rides, a zoo, and a movie theater. For Michael, Neverland was a refuge where he could relive the childhood he felt he never had. But even in his private paradise, controversy arose. The ranch became the focus of accusations that would haunt him for the rest of his life. In 1991, Michael released Dangerous, another groundbreaking album that blended pop rock and new jack swing. The album was different from his previous work, but it showed Michael always evolving, always pushing the boundaries of pop music. Songs like Black or White and Remember the Time were not just hits, they were cultural events. The Black or White music video, featuring groundbreaking visual effects and a cameo by Macaulay Culkin, became a defining moment of the early 90s. The 90s were a tumultuous time for Michael. His marriage to Lisa Marie Presley in 1994 shocked the world. It seemed like an attempt to show a more normal side of Michael, but the marriage didn't last long, ending in divorce after less than 2 years. Soon after, Michael married Debbie Rowe, a nurse who had worked for his dermatologist. They had 2 children together, Prince and Paris. Michael's desire to be a father was clear, and he often spoke of how much his children meant to him. But his fatherly happiness was overshadowed by allegations of child abuse that surfaced in the early 1990s. In 1993, Michael was charged with sexually assaulting a 13-year-old boy. The case was settled out of court, but his reputation was damaged. The media frenzy was relentless, and Michael's image was severely damaged. He maintained his innocence, and his fans supported him, but the accusations would follow him for the rest of his life. Despite the challenges, Michael continued to create. In 1995, he released History Past, Present, and Future Book 1, a double album that combined his greatest hits with new material. The album was deeply personal, with songs like Scream and They Don't Care About Us reflecting his frustration with the media and the accusations against him. The album was a commercial success, selling over 20 million copies worldwide, but it also showed a darker, more introspective side to Michael. The late 90s and early 2000s were marked by more controversy and more music. Michael's third child, Blanket, was born in 2002, and Michael's love for his children was clear. He often spoke of wanting to give them the childhood he never had, but his parenting style was criticized, especially after the infamous 2002 incident, where he hung a blanket from a Berlin hotel balcony. The incident was widely criticized, and Michael later apologized, calling it a terrible mistake. In 2003, Michael faced another major challenge when he was again charged with child molestation. The case went to trial in 2005, and the media circus that followed was unlike anything the world had ever seen. The trial was grueling, and Michael's health was clearly deteriorating throughout the proceedings. In June 2005, he was acquitted of all charges, but the damage to his reputation was irreparable. The King of Pop was vindicated in court, but public perception of him was forever changed. After the trial, Michael withdrew from the public eye. He spent time in Bahrain trying to escape the constant scrutiny. He was reportedly working on new music, but his plans remained unclear. In 2009, Michael announced This Is It, a series of 50 concerts in London that were supposed to be his comeback. Fans were thrilled and tickets sold out almost immediately. It seemed like Michael was ready to reclaim his throne, but the world would never see those shows. On June 25, 2009, Michael Jackson died of acute propofol and benzodiazepine intoxication at his home in Los Angeles. The news shocked the world. The King of Pop was gone and an outpouring of grief followed. Fans gathered outside his home at Neverland and around the world to mourn the loss of a legend. Michael's death was declared a homicide, and his personal physician, Dr. Conrad Murray, was convicted of involuntary manslaughter. The trial revealed the extent of Michael's dependence on prescription drugs, a tragic consequence of his relentless pursuit of perfection and the pressures of fame. His death marked the end of an era, but it also cemented his status as a cultural icon whose influence will never fade. In the years since his death, Michael's legacy has been both celebrated and scrutinized. His music continues to inspire new generations of artists, and his impact on popular culture is undeniable. The posthumous releases of Michael in 2010 and Escape in 2014 gave fans a glimpse into the music he was working on before his death. His legacy continues to release material, ensuring that his music remains a part of the cultural conversation. However, the allegations against him have not been forgotten. The 2019 documentary Leaving Neverland brought renewed attention to the abuse allegations as two men came forward to share their stories. The documentary has divided opinion, with some believing the allegations and others defending Michael's innocence. The controversy surrounding his legacy continues, but so does his music. Let's explore some of the craziest theories out there. Spoiler alert, none of them involve just practice and passion, cloning the King of Pop. Now this one sounds straight out of a sci-fi movie. Michael Jackson, obsessed with staying young, is said to have attempted to clone himself. The idea was to help him avoid death and all the troubles that came with his fame. Michael C. Luckman, a guy from the New York Alien Research Center, even claimed that Michael had secretly stored his DNA for future cloning projects. Some fans have suggested that his altered appearance was due to him experimenting with cloning, possibly even experimenting on himself, or that a double had replaced him long before his death. And if that wasn't enough, there are those who believe that Michael faked his death so that a clone could carry on his legacy while he finally lived in peace. Away from the public eye, random sightings of Michael in remote locations only add to this bizarre theory. Michael had money problems, big ones. At one point, he was $400 million in debt, with creditors breathing down his neck and Neverland slipping through his fingers. Some people think that Michael did the only thing that made sense. He faked his own death. According to this theory, his death was a clever way to make money, clear his debts, and disappear. Look at what happened right after his album sales skyrocketed. His old songs shot back up the charts, and Michael Jackson merchandise suddenly started popping up everywhere again. If anything, his death may have been the most profitable move he ever made. Some say he's relaxing somewhere in Mexico, living a quiet life away from it all. And every time a blurry photo of someone who looks like Michael pops up, people are convinced it's really him hiding in plain sight. You've heard it all before. The Illuminati, the secret society that supposedly runs the world, controlling governments, celebrities, and maybe even your local supermarket. Some believe that Michael made a deal with them to achieve his insane level of fame. It is said that they pulled strings to make him a superstar. But as he grew older, Michael is said to have decided not to dance to their tunes anymore. That is when things got messy. Fans claim that Michael began to include secret messages in his songs and album covers to expose the Illuminati's hold over him. Remember the Dangerous album. Some say it was covered in hidden symbols, perhaps a cry for help or a warning about who was really in charge. When Michael started ranting about how record executives were evil and the system was stacked against him, it felt like he was trying to tell us something important. Unfortunately, the theory goes he paid the ultimate price for speaking out, and that's why he died in 2009. Mysteriously, right when he was planning his comeback tour. If you thought the Illuminati was hype, wait until you hear this. Some believe that Michael was part of a secret U.S. government plan called Operation Sedgwick. As predicted, the goal was to control black culture by putting certain celebrities at the forefront, all in a carefully orchestrated manner. Of course, Michael was their golden boy, the innocent child star, who later became the pop icon, who entertained distracted and calmed people. The theory goes on to say that the Reagan administration used Michael's image to manipulate public perception. They didn't just want a superstar. They wanted someone who controlled the narrative. But Michael was not one to keep quiet. Of late, his message began to change. His This Is It tour was supposed to be more than just a concert. It was rumored to be his chance to speak out, to reveal the truth. And as you might expect, he never got that chance. It was a theory that combined international politics with pop culture. In June 2009, just as protests in Iran were heating up over a disputed election, Michael Jackson passed away. Coincidence? Some don't think so. They believe that Michael's death was a convenient way to divert global attention from the turmoil in Iran. After all, the world stopped to mourn, the king of pop, and media coverage of the protests was quickly ignored. It may seem a bit far-fetched, but believers say the timing was perfect. Michael's passing dominated headlines while the struggles in Iran were yesterday's news. The theory points to Michael's powerful influence. Even his influence could serve as a political smokescreen. Michael was paranoid, or perhaps he had good reason to be. He often said that people wanted to harm him and his daughter Paris Jackson, and even claimed that her father did too. Michael implied that he knew too much, and that was why he feared for his life. According to this theory, Michael had discovered some dark secret either about the entertainment industry or about powerful people, and that made him a target. Fans believe his songs carry messages about shady industry dealings. The lyrics in They Don't Care About Us are often cited as evidence that Michael was trying to expose something. His sudden and suspicious death is seen by some as an attempt by these powerful enemies to silence him before he could reveal their secrets to the world. And that's the dramatic journey to explore the mystery of Michael Jackson with the shocking statement, "I faked everything, and now I've revealed why." We hope you had a great time digging into this story with us. What do you think? Is this true or just a bold hypothesis? Leave your opinion in the comment section, hit like, If you love this video and don't forget to subscribe to the channel, turn on the notification bell so you don't miss the next exciting content. See you in the next video.